What's going on, boys and girls? Welcome back to another OPMW video. Alright guys, so back to One Punch Man world, and we're going to be talking about something that is very, very important. Now, first off, I want to thank everybody for joining me on my live stream last night, my first one on my return from my vacation. We had a topic that was brought up fairly often, and that is the best units to use for auto mode versus the worst units to use for auto mode. And I did promise those folks that I'm going to make a video about it because I think it's a very important topic that people should know about. Now, if you don't know, in auto mode, your main unit dictates when you lose and when you win. So if the unit dies, the battle is over. When you win, obviously you win. Your supporting cast can die. As long as your main unit stays alive, the battle will still continue. So some units excel in auto mode and some units really, really suck in auto mode. I'm going to talk about the top 3 best units and the top 3 worst units in this game for auto mode. Now, before I continue here, I do want to have a couple honorable mentions that are not in my top 3 for the best units. So for the first one, it's going to be Hellish Blizzard. She is incredible on auto mode. Now, the reason why I can't show you her gameplay is I don't own the unit, but I have a friend who does have that unit. I've been using her on his account, and she's way better than I am on auto mode at using the character and does the job really well. So Hellish Blizzard is an absolute beast in auto mode, so I want to talk about her. That's not going to be on my top 3. Also, Silverfang and Puri Puri, incredible in auto mode. So those are going to be your top 2 DPS tanks in auto mode. And then, of course, my top 3 units I'm going to discuss right now. So let's get into it. The top 3 units that are the best as your main units. The first one we're talking about melee is going to be Speedo Sound Sonic. Speedo Sound Sonic is the perfect melee character to be a main character on auto mode because he actually has and plays well with the functions of dodging. Dodging is going to be your main role here for him, and he does a really good job of doing that while performing his counter at the same time. So I'm going to show you guys examples of this, and then we're going to show you guys some of the worst units, okay? So I'll talk about the worst units again. I have one that I really want to focus on, and the other 2 I will mention as well too. I don't have them, but I've played with them, so I know how bad they are in auto mode. Okay, so first thing with Speedo Sonic. As I mentioned, a big part of his mechanic is dodging, right? So he does dodge really well. So when you are playing auto, you're going to notice that he's going to dodge perfectly for most of the battles. Okay, whenever there's a special being going on, this is a bad example right now. He's just kind of taking the hits. But for the most part, he does actually counter really, really well. And so keeping him alive is fairly easy. Let's just see. I hope he does it. There we go, right there. See, he does that a lot. He'll do this again for the most part, and then he'll do his spin move. So he does actually perform his best skills fairly often, and by being able to dodge, he actually does avoid damage quite heavily, where other units who are more tanky or don't have a dodge mechanic like that don't dodge at all, right? They'll just sit there, take it to the face, and then hope they survive. And for the most part, when you get up in higher ranks, your characters end up dying and you end up losing the battle. So Speedo Sonic is for sure the #1 melee unit in regards to dodging and surviving. So if you are looking for someone for survivability and damage as a main unit for auto mode, definitely go with Sonic as your #1 choice. Okay, so I want to show on that one. Now the second unit and third unit I'm going to talk about, we're going to get into those real quick. Alright guys, next up here is going to be 2 range units that I want to discuss specifically. Okay, so the first one you actually get for free if you complete your SSR selector, and that is going to be Metal Knight. So Metal Knight is a phenomenal character to use on a manual basis, but even better in my opinion in auto. So I'm going to show you guys how Metal Knight works in auto mode. We're going to go ahead and put him as the main character here. Now you guys can see here, power-wise, I don't really have much power. I purposely am holding back because I'm going to hit tier 15 and then just farm the crap out of things. So you're going to see some pretty crazy things from a free-to-play player once they hit tier 15. I'm almost level 65. But Metal Knight, I want to show you guys on auto mode and how well he functions. And he's actually one of the better units out there for this. And also, just real quick, there's one other hybrid unit that does really well too. We'll talk about that unit afterwards, but let's talk about Metal Knight. Now, Metal Knight, if you've played him auto, you understand 2 things about him. #1, it's all about precision, it's all about aiming, and it's all about being able to put out the proper damage at the right time. As you guys can see here, auto mode, it actually does function really well. He dodges when he's supposed to dodge. He goes into annihilation mode when he's supposed to go there. He has perfect balance for see that dodge right there? It's perfect. And he also has really good aim with all of his moves. He actually aims at the right places. And you can see here, the targeting is perfect. So there's no mess ups on the second skill, for example, where sometimes you can flay it out. He actually does perfect targeting. He aims perfectly. He reloads perfectly. And it never has problems with that. So the AI plays Metal Knight better than most players play Metal Knight. So if you guys are ever going to use a unit where you want to have complete control and not die too often, Metal Knight is a very, very good option to do. Now, the only problem with Metal Knight, of course, is going to be the fact that he's very slow. So sometimes the AI won't dodge perfectly, but for the most part, you're probably having the best performance of any unit out there next to Speedo Sonic. I'd even say probably better than Speedo Sonic in Metal Knight. So for those who are thinking of a selector and you don't have a range, you guys can see here, perfection so far. Probably the best AI unit in the game, bar none so far, and I really hope the devs continue to take him as an example and build other units around that and the performance that he offers in an auto mode space. So definitely, guys, if you want to feel safe, if you want to have good performance from one of your units, Metal Knight is a great option for auto mode. Alright, going on to the second or third unit now that I want to talk about, and this is also going to be another range unit that we'll discuss. Not quite as good as Metal Knight, has a little bit more bugs revolving around this unit, but still performs super well and can definitely be used as a main unit even at P0 for free to play. Alright guys, I'll be there in a second. Alright guys, next up that we have in the unit section for the top 3 auto units is going to be Tatsumaki Terrible Tornado. Now she's obviously not a free to play unit, you can't get her for free, you do have to summon for her, but that doesn't take away her utility and power when she's used in auto mode. So let me go ahead and set this up for you. The beauty of her is she can contain and continue using her free state liberation mode with auto very well. She targets accurately, she uses her skills at the appropriate times, and she dodges extremely well as well too. So you guys can see the range units for the most part do pretty damn well. Now I'm going to show you her sister as well on a friend's account that I have set up. One thing I don't like about her in auto mode, and I said this is a little buggy, is sometimes she'll sacrifice some of her skills in order to dodge when she could probably take the hit and avoid it. But you can see here her dodging skills are actually pretty accurate, and she is for the most part very good at avoiding damage until something like that happens, obviously, and then she takes it. So for dodging perspective, she's actually pretty good. She does keep her distance, and she keeps on the yellow trigger as much as possible, so that allows you to keep building your tornado and free state. And then again, for the most part, she is a very good DPS and understands how to avoid certain mechanics and avoid taking damage. Now, so you can see here, she is currently in normal mode still, and now there it goes. She goes into free state when it activates, and then she'll do one thing well. She'll move around in this state, probably the best out of any state possible. Usually here, when the rupture isn't happening, she'll avoid damage. This is actually a bad example of a boss to show you, but you can see here she stays in yellow trigger, keeps her distance, continues building damage, does tornado, and then now you can see her, she starts moving around, right? And this is the good part about her. She actually does move around to avoid damage and keeps liberation mode for you going fairly well. Again, the rupture part sucks. Obviously, she took a lot of damage from that. This is probably a bad boss to show her on, but you can see here, she doesn't stop moving, which is exactly how she should play. Now, this specific move here sucks. She, like the AI for any enemy really isn't very good at maintaining, but she did a pretty good job avoiding it there. She's building it up again. And remember, my Tatsumaki is P0, and you can see here, she doesn't really stand still. And again, that's very important. This move specifically does get her once in a while. It does suck. But again, look, she's constantly moving, she's avoiding damage, and that's what you want auto to do. You want auto to survive and use the unit like you would use the unit. In this case, she's doing exactly that. And so I would put her as the top 3 units for sure for the AI to use in auto. So there's my top 3 guys. Now I'm going to go and talk about the 3 worst and do a couple honorable mentions along the way as we play the game. See, she's not attacking until she gets close to yellow, and that's very important. That yellow hair trigger is going to help you build your tornado a lot quicker and also go into free stance a lot quicker, right? So there you guys have it. Those are my top 3 units for auto mode that I've been using and I've been finding work really well, and I barely ever lose any match. So hope that helped you guys out. Now let's go to the the 3 worst auto units in the game and the ones you should avoid as your main hero on your screen. Alright guys, so first on the list of the 3 worst auto units in the game, and this is probably the worst one, and it's unfortunate because he's my favorite unit in manual mode, and that is going to be none other than Zombie Man. So we're going to go ahead and set him up here and I'll show you guys. Now Zombie Man is interesting because he has a mechanic where you want him to lose HP, so his moves become stronger and overall he performs better. But unfortunately, the NPC doesn't understand the mechanics well enough to differentiate between losing HP and losing too much HP and dying. So the biggest problems with Zombie Man are as follows. Number 1, he doesn't do his switching mode between handgun and axe at the right time. He does it like as soon as it's up, which is not the proper way to play Zombie Man. So number 1, the mechanics aren't done correctly. Number 2, he doesn't dodge. He never ever dodges for me. He just takes hits. Look at that. He just takes it to the face. Doesn't dodge, right? He just kind of sits there and absorbs every hit because he has that mechanic of losing the health. And so it kind of sucks because 2 things. Number 1, he dies quicker. Number 2, he takes a lot of debuffs, so whether it's comas, burnings, etc. Zombie Man is probably the worst built auto unit in the game, but also the best used manual unit in the game for me personally. As you can see here, look, he's switching it now. He should have waited to 50% so he gets more damage output on there, but instead he just does the switch as soon as he possibly can. As long as it's up, he'll do it. And that kind of causes a problem as well too, because even in gun mode, sometimes you actually want to avoid doing that if doing the switch, because you want to build your health up. But you guys can see he's already at half max health, which is horrible for Zombie Man. He should be a max or half health for only his fake blood. So Zombie Man unfortunately falls under the worst auto unit in the game in my opinion. Switching inappropriately, not dodging enough, dying way too often, not using his capabilities correctly and his mechanics or his passives. So avoid using him as your main unit for auto mode. You guys can see here he's getting his butt whooped, and I'm probably going to lose a fight that I should easily be winning with Zombie Man. Alright, so there's your number one, guys. We're going to talk about the other two very shortly. Alright guys, next up is going to be Genos. That's right. Unfortunately, not quite as bad as Zombie Man, but nonetheless, still somebody who takes the hits and continues taking them while doing his special. So Genos is actually good because he's a hybrid unit. He has both a melee stance and he has a range stance. The problem with Genos in this mode is during his melee stance, he just kind of takes the hits and keeps taking it and doesn't do proper dodges. And dodging is such a huge mechanic. You can see here he's just getting lucky because the boss is missing, but normally he'll just move. He doesn't even dodge. He'll just like try to get out of the way rather than dodging. So that's one problem I found with Genos. He doesn't dodge enough in this game and takes a lot of the hits. Now with the range mode, he does have pretty good accuracy, especially with that move right there. And when he's in range mode, he actually does dodge a lot better compared to his melee mode. Now I don't know if this is a melee problem, but you can see here when he's in melee mode, he just takes all the hits to the face. So not the best unit to have on auto mode, not as bad as Zombie Man by any means. But still, look at this. Like, he just took Rupture and is pretty much taking everything to the face and really not avoiding any of the damage coming in. So Genos does a good job in the range mode, but unfortunately, you can see here he's about to die. When it comes down to actual auto mode, in his melee stance, just takes all the hits and loses all these battles. Now, these are some of the units I constantly lose with, and I've been purposely trying these out and testing them to see how well they do. Genos and Zombie Man are two of the worst, unfortunately, for auto, unless you've got them super buffed up. Mine are all equal stats right now. They're all like even keel, about 6k to 7k, and that right there is an example of a unit that unfortunately you don't want to have as a main one, because they die really quickly to a lot of debuffs and to a lot of damage. So again, Genos, unfortunately, in my opinion, one of the worst auto units in the game. Amazing main unit, just really crappy auto unit. Alright guys, one more to go. Alright guys, the last one on the list is none other than Saitama. That's right, he is one of the worst auto characters in the game. Unfortunately, he uses his skills at really bad timing in my opinion. Doesn't dodge correctly and take advantage of his actual dodge skills. Now, I've had bad experience because I played him on my friend's account, and I've just noticed after testing him out at 5 or 6 battles, trying different mobs and everything, he just is subpar when it comes down to auto mode. Incredible again with manual mode, one of those characters that you can definitely use manual mode to take more advantage of it. But if you're looking for auto farming, guys, I find Saitama to be probably one of the worst auto characters. So try to avoid that if you can. Try to put him as your main character if you plan to use him, and I think you guys will prosper more. But unfortunately, when it comes down to auto farming, he is one of those supporting cast members. You don't want to have him as a member of your main team, because he's just not going to function the way you want him to function. You'll probably get pretty frustrated with the results you'll get, and most likely lose your battles. So again, unless you build him like a huge tank and whale, you're gonna probably have really bad results using him there. So there you guys go. Those are the 3 worst SSRs in the game for auto mode versus the top 3, in my opinion at least, of the auto mode best units. And again, the honorable mentions are incredible as well. Feel free to use them as your main units. They will function absolutely like they're incredible at what they do for auto mode. And I just hope the devs understand that this is something they need to kind of adjust for everybody. Everyone should be just as good as each other in auto mode based on mechanics and everything. They should rescript and recode some of these things to make them better, because like Zombie Man, for example, is my top tier unit in the game for manual, but is the worst unit in auto, and that makes no sense to me. So there you guys go. Hope this kind of helped you guys out to understand which units to use as your main units versus which ones to use in your supporting cast, or just avoid them altogether on your team. This is Payne. Hope you enjoyed the video. I'll talk to you guys in the next one. Take care.